it up for jonbarbera.
Thank you. I hope you guys heard the sirens earlier. It was announcing me, so that was really cool. Never heard sirens before until Brian. He's like, oh yeah, it's a tornado. I'm like, what? Are we safe? Is this okay? So very new to me. Before I get started with the training, what I wanted to talk about is something that if you don't understand this piece, the rest of the talk makes no sense to you. So I was born in Argentina. For those of you who don't know, that's South America, not Africa. The school system has failed you here. But I was born in Argentina. That means the white boy up here speaks Spanish. And I was there until I was about 7 years old. My dad decided to chase the American dream, hopped on a plane, flew all the way to New York. I knew the American dream was real when we got on the plane. They gave us a little pouch with a toothbrush, an airplane, and Crayola crayons. First time in my life I ever had Crayola brand crayons. I was like, damn, we're going to the promised land, right? So it was very exciting. Landed in New York, went through most of school in New York. I dropped out of high school around 11th grade. Did most of my schooling up there, worked up there, spent about 20 years there. Then I moved down to Texas. I've been in Texas for about 12 years. That's where I started my business, grew my business, started my family. So Texas has been very good to me. The reason I bring this up is because at the end of every event, after I teach whatever it is I'm teaching, I get somebody that comes up to me and says, great presentation, you did great. Where's your accent from? I'm like, the whole presentation, that's what you took away was my accent. So that's where my accent is from. It's all over the place, all right? So I hope that makes sense. I hope it doesn't bother you. You know, there's gonna be some New Yorker that comes out of me sometimes. I might curse, I'm not sure. I'm gonna try to hold it back, but you know, apologize ahead of time. Do I get a, oh, all right. So what is wholesaling? One time I had a privilege, I sat down with a lot of investors in San Antonio to get them started and everything. And I asked an investor what do you think is wholesaling? He's like, well, when a lady is around 68, maybe 72 years old, her husband probably died about a year ago. She has a house that they've lived in there pretty much their whole life. They have a bunch, I'm like, stop. Wholesaling in a very simple, nutshell way, it's distress. That's it. It's a distressed situation. Not a distressed house, not a distressed seller, a distressed situation, right? It could be a house. I bought many beautiful houses that were not distressed, but the seller needed to sell. That's what is wholesaling. You're finding somebody that needs to sell at below market value. The MLS doesn't make sense to them. They need to sell quickly. The house might be in excellent condition or it might be complete trash. It doesn't matter. This is why when we talk to sellers, I never talk about the house first. I don't care about the house. I care about the situation. So that's just to kind of, for anybody that's new, that's what you're looking for. And what the wholesale is, you find a buyer, fix and flip buyer, buy and hold investor, that is looking to buy a house that's below retail value so they can renovate it, keep it as a rental, do something like that. The difference between what you contracted at and what you sell it to them at is your wholesale fee. That's what a wholesale is. Now, a lot of the misconceptions is people get into wholesale and they say, I need to make 10 grand. Well, you're gonna make whatever the deal makes. But that's the concept I want you guys to understand. You gotta do whatever makes sense for the deal. If that's 5 grand, if that's 50 grand, and all in between. If you stick at 10 grand and you don't sell deals, it's because you're in it for the money, not in it to get the deal done. Focus on the deal, pay attention to the deal. So the old way of wholesaling, because I'm teaching you a new method, is doing random marketing. And for those of you that have done any type of wholesaling, you've probably seen this. What do? Pull any list, I don't know, high equity, pre-foreclosures, divorce, everything works. You come to a networking event, somebody tells you they're doing evictions, you start doing evictions. No rhyme or reason, just do all the marketing, direct mail, cold calling, door knocking, door hangers, throw shit at the wall, see what sticks, right? Lock up anything. Any seller that says yes to you, you're gonna lock it up. I nailed it, got it. The seller's good, I'm in, locked it up. And then you hope that buyers come by, right? It's just the miracle of wholesaling. You lock it up, you lock up a good deal, and you're gonna find the buyer. And maybe you make some money. Then you rinse and repeat. You do it again. That was the old model. That model for me was a massive struggle. I've been doing this for 12 years, and it was hard. Really, really hard when I got started. I didn't have the money. Marketing costs money. Not getting deal costs money, right? If you need to survive, wholesaling can take a lot of time. And you don't know what a deal is. You've never done a wholesale deal before. So you say, do marketing, get a property under contract. For what price? I don't know. Whatever the seller is willing to sell it at. Is that a deal? I don't know. Hopefully I find a buyer. It's like, okay. You don't know what to ask for. You find a buyer. Yeah, I'm interested in that deal. I guess I want 10 grand. Well, do you want 10 grand? Is it worth 10 grand? Is it worth 7 grand? Is it worth 20 grand? I don't know, right? This is all the confusion. This is the problem with wholesaling that gets so many people stuck in the process of this. It's so hard to build and scale from there. And I don't want to be one of those sleazy wholesalers. That's the biggest one. Because I'll tell you the truth. For me, for the longest time when I started wholesaling, I was struggling. I was struggling a lot. And I was like, I am not going to screw over a seller, and I'm not going to screw over a buyer. Those are the only wholesalers that are getting deals done. The only wholesalers that are getting deals done, the ones that are screwing over both. And guess what? That was just me being a victim. You understand? That was me looking for an excuse to why I wasn't getting deals done. That's not the truth. Wholesaling is not sleazy. The person doing the wholesaling is what's sleazy, right? So that goes with any strategy. But if you're going at it with, the only deals out there are just crap, the market is crap, all these things, you're never going to succeed in this business. One thing I like to tell people is like, are people flipping houses? Yes. So are people selling houses? Yes. You need to be making money. That's it. That's the only formula to determine if you're in a good market. And St. Louis is an excellent market. So I stopped wholesaling. I started focusing on flips. By then, I've already built enough of a reputation, started flipping houses. My background's in construction, so I knew how to renovate, manage renovations, so I did that for many years. We picked up some rentals, built a small rental portfolio. We built some houses. Never doing that again. We built 5 houses. They were all 5 a nightmare. My God, dealing with the city, dealing with inspectors, dealing with contractors. It was a complete nightmare. It's not something I like or enjoy. And I got burned out a lot, like really burned out. I was getting to a point where I hated real estate, but I'm a high school dropout and I don't have a degree. This is all I did, right? And for most of my life in this country, I was an illegal immigrant. So that means I didn't even have like credit history. So there wasn't many options for me, so I had to keep forcing the success. Then 2020 came and it changed everything. I don't know how 2020 was for you guys, but in Texas, it blew up. We dried up on deals because the biggest problem we had over there was we were being outbid on every single one of our wholesale deals. Every single one that we were trying to buy from wholesalers, they were outbidding us by $50,000, $70,000 when our profit on those deals was potentially 30, 35 grand. I'm like, I don't know what the hell you guys are doing. What are you doing with this deal to outbid me by that much? Having a mic is very uncomfortable. I like talking with my hands. So sorry about that. But it was something that we were being outbid consistently on each and every single one of our deals. So I had to do the thing that I hated the most, is get back to marketing. So we did the same thing. We pulled lists, started cold calling, SMS blast, RVMs blast. We are probably not the reason, but we definitely didn't help the situation for all the new regulations that's come down the line. We were blasting probably 8,000 text messages a day. So yeah, we were obnoxious. And it was, you could do that. You could do that back then. It was fun. But we had an issue with this too, is it just wasn't enough. We went back to burning out. The deals were too small. We would hit dry spells. We'll get like 2, 3 deals. Yay, it's great. 15 grand, maybe 20 grand here. And then it's like no deals for 3 or 4 months. And like, stressed out again, scared. What's gonna happen? How are we gonna pay the bills? Just overwhelmed. And then marketing's not working. The list we were marketing to changed. That's no longer working. The service provider changed. The company that we're using for cold calling, they changed the regulations. The text message company that we were using went out of business. We had a ridiculously high overhead. We had to get to 14 employees, and we were barely able to break like 40, 50 grand a month. That is a tremendous amount of stress to try to manage a business that way, you know, and we were struggling. It was almost paycheck to paycheck. We were just constantly just over broke. And sometimes we would use our credit lines to kind of float some of the bills until the next deal closed. So high stress, high stress. So much like an entrepreneur in Shark Tank, I was like, there's just got to be a better way, right? So that's where the epiphany came up. And I started asking questions. What list should I be pulling? Who determines what's a deal? What's the best marketing channel? How to run better numbers? And I started questioning everything I knew about wholesaling. Everything of how I picked up properties, how I analyzed properties, what made me such a good buyer versus somebody else, what made these people overbid on any property that I was getting. So I started formulating, like understanding, trying to reverse engineer it. And that's where I came up with the Pryme Wholesaling Method. So I broke it down in 3 phases. Phase 1 is the foundation. The foundation is created just like a house, where if you have a strong foundation, the house can burn down, you can scrape it and rebuild the house on top of it, right? If you have a deep, strong foundation, you can build a massive property on top of it. And that's how you build a business. And those are the things that I was never taught. When I started wholesaling, they just said what I told you, the old way. Pull a list, do a ton of marketing, get a deal, hopefully you find a buyer, and hopefully you make some money. Right? That was the pattern. To me, that wasn't a business. So I put this method together. It's got 9 pillars, 27 modules of how it all breaks down. And I can't go over everything today because Brian is very greedy with the time, so he gave me very limited time. But what I did do for you guys is I'm creating a PDF with the whole breakdown, and you guys all get it for free. So just go in there. I'm putting some final touches. It's got the whole breakdown of the whole system that you guys can check out. So just get a picture of that. But the whole premise of this is not to tell you how to wholesale. It's to teach you how to think like an investor. What I'm training you with this method and with what I'm going to share with you today is how to build an acquisitions business, because I needed to solve the problem I wanted. I don't want to be a wholesaler. I want to be an investor. But I want to flip houses that are netting me $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 and not flip houses that are making me 20 grand. That's not how you build a business. It's too much work. For anybody here that's done a house that's netted you 20 grand, after 3-4 months, that's a lot of work, right? That's a ton of work for just $20,000. So what I've been able to do is I was like, I need to source my own deals. But how do I source my own deals and still flip houses? Because flipping houses is a full-time job, right? So we go through a more structured format on how to build that business of acquisition so you will understand as an investor what makes sense. So with that business, we start with pillar number 1. This is market insight mastery. What is so important about this? This is the most boring pillar that everybody hates, but it's the most important one. If you don't understand your market, if you don't understand why it's hot, why it's cooling off, which direction it's going, what's working, what's not working, you're going to put properties on the market and you're not going to understand why they're not selling. I had a lot of those. Now, every single one of our properties, months of inventory in San Antonio right now is over 5 months of inventory. That's a slow market. Our houses still sell in less than 2 weeks. You understand? And it's not because I'm magical, but it's because we understand the market that we're pricing our houses in. And it starts with this. And this is something that I've been in this, again, 12 years. I know very few people that actually understand their market. So why does this matter? Precisely for that. You're going to rent a property. People ask me, John, is this a good rental? Pillar number 1. John, is this a good flip? Hey, pillar number 1, right? Do you understand your market? Do you know what's working in that area? Why are you going to flip in that area? What type of flip is selling right now? What's the median prices? Like, what's working, what's not working? You got to understand your market. So the data that we pull, here's the framework to it, is you got to understand months of inventory. Months of inventory tells you how good the market is, right? San Antonio, like I said, we're closer to 5 months of inventory. It's slowed down a lot. St. Louis, I don't know if Lucas is still here or anybody that knows, but 2 months? Yeah, so that's a beautiful market. That's why you're getting over-ask bids on all your properties. 2 months of inventory, that is a market where there's so much demand and not enough supply. What does that mean? You can be more aggressive with your flips, right? You can push numbers more. You can maybe not go so crazy on the renovation. A good strategy that works in these types of markets is wholesaling. Wholesaling is the combination of wholesaling and retail, right? You buy a house that fits, that qualifies for traditional financing, but it's not updated. You clean it up, you put it on the market. We've made a lot of money on those deals. But you gotta know your market. Does it make sense to do that property in that area? Then the hottest prices. Now, the hottest prices are the prices that are selling the fastest based on months of inventory. You gotta run those numbers. What price point in St. Louis moves the fastest? And what are the hottest zip codes? What are the areas in St. Louis that move the fast? I get a lot of students that tell me, we start pulling the data, and I'm like, it looks like it's this side of town. Oh, I don't like that side of town. I don't care, right? Because you want to make money. Like, what are we talking about your feelings? You know, that's the problem, though. Everybody in real estate gets too caught in their feelings. I don't like this. I don't like that. Well, if you're about your feelings, this whole business is going to be very hard. You got to do what is necessary. You got to do what the market wants. Supply what the market wants. So when you pull these data, how do you put it together? You get the hottest price points, you combine it with the hottest zip codes, and you got yourself, if you get a house in those areas, it's going to move quickly, whether you're wholesaling it or you're flipping it. Now, if you're flipping it, it allows you to be a lot more aggressive with your offer, because you know that it's like, hey, this area is in high demand. I can go and I can be aggressive to this seller because it's like, let's go. I'm going to sell this house. But if you're not sure and you go to a property, and I was talking to some investors earlier, but you go to a property and other wholesalers are there and they're like, I don't know if I can make this deal work, this and that. But you understand the market, you understand the area. You go and you're like, here's my price, here's my offer, I can close right now. You know, it carries weight, but you can't have that confidence if you don't understand what the market is doing. If you don't understand how hot the market is, what's working in the market, what's not working in the market, you're never going to go anywhere. It's always going to be a struggle. And what this is going to do is also when it tells you what areas of town is working, is not working, what's moving, what's not moving, that's going to help you understand your marketing that you need to do. Because based on that data, you're going to see that it's like, oh, maybe it's the lower ends of town. Then what are the possible motivators for sellers on those sides of town? What could cause a seller in that side of town to want to sell a house? Now you start asking the questions that are going to lead you to the marketing that you need to be doing. Does this make sense? So pulling the market data, again, is the most important pillar. It's the one I keep going back to time and time again. Every time somebody asks me, should I buy this rental? Should I buy this flip? This is your answer. The data is going to tell you what you need to do, not another investor. Another investor is going to give you an opinion. The data is going to tell you the facts. The data is going to tell you why their house is not selling, how much to sell it for, should you price it under, should you price it over. In a market with 5 months of inventory, people say, oh, that's a terrible market. No, you just got to be a little bit more aggressive with your deals, right? I got to get them a little bit lower, and maybe I got to do a much better rehab and price them a little bit lower than I would have before. They still sell. Everything at the right price is always going to sell. I mean, that's just the magic formula, right? Everything makes sense at the right price. So that's all you want to know is, are the months of inventory going up? Is the market slowing down? And what we do is we track this, all this data, we track it month over month. Because then after 5, 6 months, you see patterns. You're like, oh, I see the market slowing down. I had a lot of new students that started freaking out in the last few months because they're like, man, the market is really just slowing down. I'm seeing the data slowing down. I'm like, yeah, you're in the winter. That's normal. You haven't been in it long enough to have the data from last winter to see that that's what the markets do. When we price our rentals, if I get a rental on the market, let's say in October, because that's when I finish my rehab, I will set the lease for 18 months. I will try to get a tenant so that when the lease is up, it's up in March and April, because that's when we get the highest prices for our rentals. So we do more custom fitting leases, so we make sure that whenever a lease is up, it's always gonna be up in the hottest time of the market. Does this make sense? So again, how did we determine that? Doing the market research. We didn't determine that because we're just so good. I mean, we are, but it's also the market research helps a lot. So when you start pulling it over months, you start stacking the data, and now you start seeing patterns. In San Antonio, we had a massive spike in months of inventory. Massive, massive spike. We're like, holy crap, what just happened? What's going on? It scared the crap out of us. And it went up, I'm telling you, like to 8 months of inventory. We were at like below 3, and it shot up to 8 months of inventory. And we had properties mid-renovation. And we were like, we were heading into the winter months, which is like some of the worst time to sell a house. So we got so scared. We were like, what the hell's going on? And it was just an influx of inventory that hit the market in the historic district of San Antonio. When I saw that, I was like, thank God. Because it is a bunch of inventory people don't want. The inventory that we had is properties that people always want. So we did not feel, everybody was freaking out. 8 months of inventory. We're like, yeah, let's go. Because we knew the data. We knew what we were doing. We knew what the market was doing. So it didn't scare us. It didn't do anything. And it helped us move better with our marketing as well. Because if you're doing any wholesaling direct to seller marketing, which is what I train people on doing, is direct to seller. If you're looking to do 10 to 15 deals, that's not what you're gonna get out of me. I don't train you how to do that. I train you how to do 2 to maybe 3 deals a month. But our average wholesale is 35 grand, and our average flip is 75 grand. And all of our flips are 20 to 30,000 renovations, right? Quick in and out. We cherry pick the best deals. My team is a team of 3. And we cross 150 grand a month consistently. You understand? Small, but powerful. And that's where I feel a lot of people need to start. You can always scale from there. There's a lot of people out there teaching how to do 10, 15, 20 deals a month. You can't start there though. You understand? You got to baby steps, right? Get 1 to 2 deals consistently. Build the consistent flow. And one of the things I train a lot, and some people don't like it, is that when you start with me, I tell you to stop flipping because it pulls your attention. It pulls your focus. You need to build an acquisition company first. Build the acquisitions, you'll never need a deal again. Since we've done this, there has not been a month that I've ever needed 20 grand. That's like, man, I can get 20 grand very quickly because of the information I pull, because of the data I have. So the data matters. Now, pillar number 2, strategic buyer arsenal. So on this one, why does this matter? Your buyers list, even if you're not wholesaling, that is your investors list. Every time the market turns in any direction, I pick up the phone, I speak to 4 or 5 of my investors, and I know exactly what's going on in the market. Because between all 5 of us, we're doing between 30 and 45 deals a month. By myself, I can't pull that data. I'm not gonna know what's happening in the market by myself because I'm not doing that many deals. On average, we do probably 4 to 6 deals a month. So I don't have that much data. But my investors, with everybody combined, when it happened in San Antonio in January 22, interest rates shot up, taxes shot up, insurance prices shot up, and rents stayed the same. All of a sudden, I'm calling all my buy and hold investors. What are you guys doing? They're like, I don't know. We can't cash flow. I was like, good. I'm not working with you guys anymore. So I was not sending any deals to any of my buy and hold investors anymore. I knew I needed to pivot my marketing to strictly to fix and flip investors because the buy and hold investors were not willing to leave $40,000, $50,000 in a house just for them to cash flow, right? Because that's what it was. That 70, 80% formula went completely on its head. All of a sudden, we're seeing flippers buying at 80% because they're willing to make 20 grand on a deal, and buy and hold investors needed to buy at 60% just so they could have enough equity in the property, just so it would cash flow. As a wholesaler, as an investor, that matters, right? And as an investor, that mattered the most because then I was like, I'm finding my own deals. I'm like, hey, this one cash flows, but I gotta leave 100 grand in equity in the deal just for it to cash flow? I don't think so. I'm gonna sell this one. I'm gonna take the 100 grand right now, right? But now I'm making my decision based on what I know because I see what the market is doing. And any real estate market, from what I've gathered, is rents take on average 2 to 3 years to catch up to a massive rise in prices. St. Louis didn't have that kind of upswing that we had in Texas. Texas, everybody moved to Texas during the pandemic. So it just shot up ridiculously. But St. Louis didn't have that influx. So you guys still have a good ratio between price value and rents. You still are finding great deals. But your buyers is where you're gonna understand what it all looks like. So what strategies are working? Again, I meet people that haven't done anything. They're like, I wanna buy land. Why? I don't know, I just wanna buy land. Does land work in your market? I don't know. It's like, how about we figure out what works in your market first? Let's figure out what your buyers are doing. Let's figure out what the market is doing. When you figure out what the buyers are doing, what's working, what they're making money on, what do you have to do? Do the same shit. Like, it works. Why do you have to do something that doesn't make sense? You understand? Like, again, it doesn't make sense. No need for ARV or repairs. Now, this part, I tend to lose a lot of people. If you're wholesaling a house and you are running ARV and repairs, you are wasting your time and losing deals. Only every time. Why? Again, I've been doing this for 12 years. I've never met investors that can agree on ARVs. Everybody's got their own interpretation of what the right ARV is for this house. Some people are very optimistic, some people are very conservative, right? I don't care. You as a wholesaler shouldn't care because they're the ones buying the house. And the same goes for repairs. I'm gonna factor in repairs. If you're not using my contractors, sourcing the materials how I source them, managing the rehab how I manage it, there is no way in hell that we're gonna nail the same repairs. I used to do property tours. I'm walking through a property, it's 1,500 square feet. We just spent $55,000 on the renovation. And one of the people on the tour, they asked me, they're like, oh, great. I have a similar house, so it's gonna be about 55 grand. I was like, no, it's not gonna be 50, it's 55 for me. I don't know what it's gonna be for you. If you're not using my guys, managing the rehab how I manage it, sourcing the materials how I source them, going to a project every single day, doing, keeping the timeline tight, selling for the price that you're supposed to be selling, at the speed you're supposed to be selling, there's a lot of variables there. So as a wholesaler, why are you doing this? This is why I was being outbid every single time. There are buyers out there, and there are here in St. Louis as well, we've proved it. There are buyers that are willing to pay so much more than you are for a property. Now, you may do what I used to do. These buyers are idiots, right? They're morons. They don't know what the heck they're doing. They're going to lose their ass. Well, they keep buying houses, and I wasn't getting any deals done. So that ego of mine, that whole insecurity of like they're idiots and all that was not serving me. So I was like, you know what? If they're buying it, something's making sense to them that's not making sense to me. Why am I going to reinvent the wheel, right? So we do also reverse wholesaling. What reverse wholesaling is, you get yourself a really good motivated seller. They give you a price. You're like, man, I don't even know if I can make this work. They want 110. Take some pictures of the house. You take it to one of your buyers. Hey, this house, any chance you can come in anywhere near like the 130? Let them give you a price. If they're like, oh, hell no, I wouldn't buy this for more than 90, then the 110 is not gonna work, right? But if your buyer tells you, no, I can't do 130, but I can do 125, now you got a decision to make. Do you wanna do it for 110? Do you wanna negotiate? But you got a done deal pretty much. It eliminates all the risks. You see, it's not that hard. We make it hard because we wanna be very, investors. We're cool. We know how to, here are the ARVs, It's like, that means nothing. Anybody that's done any level of flips will know that even appraisers suck. I mean, I've had appraisals come back and $100,000 off. I'm like, what are you doing? We went 3 years back. Why would you go 3 years back? Like, the market was drastically different 3 years ago. Like, who taught you how to do this? You know, so those are appraisers. That, literally their whole job is to do that. I mean, you know, well, I'm not going to go down that road. It triggers me a little, okay? But that's the thing. Nobody agrees on these numbers. So I don't do ARVs. When I wholesale a deal, I don't say, hey, here's the ARV, here's the repairs. When they ask me like, well, what do you think the repairs are? Here's 120 pictures. Talk to your contractor, right? Figure it out. I'm not telling you what my repairs are going to be. Here's the other part. I would wholesale deals when I started to these buyers that they would call me up and they loved me. They're like, John, I made so much more money than I thought I was going to make. I'm like, yay, but I'm still hungry. You know, like I am still broke because I only made $5,000 on this and you made an extra $20,000 on that deal. Good for you. I like the reputation, right? I like the fact that you're happy that you worked with me and all that, repeat business, but I still got to eat, you know, and I wasn't making the money. And I was like, but I'm not a sleazebag. I'm not one of these, you know, wholesalers that's going to take advantage of people. And then I started realizing these things. And when I started realizing these things, I was like, I'm not here to think for you. I'm sending you the property, sending you the pictures, giving you time to check it out. Do what you got to do. Take your contractor there, run your numbers, run your ARV. I don't know what the ARV is. Well, then you probably shouldn't be buying a house, right? Anybody that does less than 7 deals a year, you're going to have to get lucky and catch them at a time that they're buying. That's not a solid buyer. A buyer that does 7+ deals a year, they have contractors. They know what their numbers are. They know what the areas are. They know what they want. You understand? When you start talking to buyers and you ask them, you know, like, hey, what's your buy box? And the majority of them don't know. They're like, well, if the deal makes sense, well, you know, I really hope you buy houses that make sense. You know, that's a good strategy to start with, but like, you got to give me some metrics, right? Anything in St. Louis. St. Louis is big, you know, so you got to start asking better questions. The best question I like to ask, once I determine that they do at least 7 deals a year, is what houses don't you like? People can answer what they hate more than they can answer what they like, right? So again, I did pillar number 1. I know what St. Louis is doing. I know what St. Louis is producing. I know the hot areas. I know the bad areas. Do you buy in this area? No, I don't like the South Side. Why not? The houses are too old. They're too ghetto. They're this, they're that. Got it. Now I start narrowing down what their criteria is because they don't know their own criteria. What's the level of rehab? Oh, cosmetic rehab. What does cosmetic mean to you? I've done $180,000 renovations on a 1,400 square foot house. So my level of cosmetic is drastically different than somebody else's level of cosmetic. To some people, it's carpet and paint. To me, it's pretty much anything interior that I don't have to do anything structural, right? If I'm replacing the cabinets, the bathrooms, the lighting, that's a cosmetic rehab to me. To somebody else, it's carpet and paint. What does cosmetic mean to you? What aren't you willing to do? Will you do an addition to a house? No, I wouldn't do an addition. Would you fix foundation, HVAC, electrical, roofs? I mean, roofs, not a big deal, but anything, I don't know what it is here in St. Louis. Like what in San Antonio, we have 2 types of houses, those that have foundation issues and those that are going to have foundation issues. So I make sure with everybody, every time I speak to a buyer, I'm like, do you deal with houses that have foundation issues? No, I don't buy those. I'm like, all right, see you later. You know, you're never buying a house in San Antonio, you know, because that's what it is. That's the soil. You have houses with foundation issues consistently. So I am digging deep into these buyers. What's working, what's not. What type of funding are you using? Because a cash buyer, although they seem attractive, the problem with cash buyers is they run out of cash, right? They can only have so much cash. I use hard money. You can only have so many hard money loans. This goes out to a lot of you flippers too that you use hard money. Hard money is great, but when you have 5, 6 houses with hard money loans, that monthly bill gets very high. That overhead gets very high. I have bought a package of 6 houses from a hard money lender that foreclosed on an investor that could not pay the monthly bill. And there was equity in every single one of those houses, but they could not keep up with the payments, right? So I want to make sure that I'm not dealing with an investor that gets tapped out at 3 properties, right? Or somebody that's using hard money terms that are too high. They're very new. So the hard money terms they're using are ridiculously high. They're never going to be premium. The other thing I want to know, my buyers. I want buyers that buy from wholesalers or the MLS. They have no other option than to buy from wholesalers or the MLS. Therefore, they're going to pay a premium. I tell, every time I give a talk in San Antonio, and people say, what's your buy box? I was like, I promise you, if you're bringing me a deal, you don't have buyers, because I don't pay premium, because I source my own deals. I am not going to do a deal for 20 grand. The minimum I want to make on a deal is 50K. And that better be a $20,000 rehab. You understand? That's me, because I source my own deals. But I have buyers that are willing to do that same renovation and make $20,000. That's a $30,000 swing on the same property. That 30 grand could make you a better offer to the seller, a bigger wholesale fee to you. I mean, it gives you so much more leeway. But if you don't have the buyers, you're not going to get that. So you leverage your buyers. I leveraged my buyers since I started. I started broke. I was very broke when I got started in this. You go to a buyer that's like, I need properties. Cool, well, I have time. How about you pay for marketing, I'll chase down the deals. Your buyers will pay for all of your marketing all day long because they want the deals. I did that for many years until I was able to build my own business. I leveraged my connections. I leveraged everything that I did. The way I found all my buyers was coming to events like this. And not coming to events like this to eat. Coming to events like this to network. All right? If I came here, I didn't speak to the people I already knew. I spoke to everybody I've never met before. And I'm looking for new buyers consistently. Always. They're one of my best buyers. I met them one time at an event. Never again did I see him at an event. It was just the one time that he decided to go because he just needed some deals that day. He's been my best buyer ever since. Most people did not even know about this guy because he never showed up. But because I show up at every single event and I talk to every single person that shows up, I had that leg up. So I was able to leverage that connection, and now he buys properties that are under 100 grand all day long because he does owner finance. That's his strategy. I have a whole marketing funnel just to generate deals for him. So why? Because every time there's a deal under 100 grand, he snatches it up, does not care how much I make. So building your buyers list, again, it's your investors list. It's what's telling you what strategies are working. Why are those strategies working? What's making sense in the market? You know, you leverage your buyers to be your, a lot of my buyers became my lenders after a while. I use private funds. I've never used hard money. You know, most of my buyers became my lenders. They didn't have the time to chase down these deals. So they rather lend me money. But that was because, again, I did so much business for them, right? So you want to make sure that when you're doing this and when you're running your numbers and you're about to wholesale a deal, and I had 2 students recently in St. Louis go after the same deal. And one of them says, I can't make the deal work because it's, you know, the best I got a buyer at is 125. My other student says, he says, you know, does this deal make sense? Well, do you have a buyer? Yeah, I have a buyer at 150. The seller wanted 114. I was like, I think you got a deal there. Same property. One made it a deal, the other one couldn't make it a deal. You see what I'm saying? Like, that was the power of the buyers. And it's what I tell these other students all the time, and what I tell everybody. You build your buyers list, you never stop building your buyers list. These 2 pillars are on the foundation for a reason. These 2 pillars are the ones that drive your whole business. All right? As long as you are known in the market, you are networking, you're building your buyers list, people know who you are, you know what the market is doing, you will never need a deal again. Because all I have to do is come in here, I talk to a few of you guys, I know what you're looking for, I know what's working in the market, I know what's moving, I know what's being overpriced. I understand all these things. Now I know exactly what area of town I need to focus my attention in. Every time I meet a new investor and they're trying to do marketing, and I'm asking them, where do you market? And they're like, St. Louis, St. Charles, Jefferson, here, there, over there. I'm like, bro, no. How successful are you? Well, I'm not. I'm like, not a surprise. You're spread way too thin. You start narrow, very, very narrow. So this is how you put it all together. You know, what market are you in? What's working? Who are your solid buyers? And then supply the demand, right? And this is exactly what I'm telling you right now. You build these two pillars. These two build your whole foundation. After this, whatever it is that you do is 10 times easier. As a fix and flipper, I flip we buy probably 90% of the houses we generate ourselves, right? That's why I do it, because I want big deals. I want good deals. But now I'm able to focus, and I'm really good at what I do. I dominate San Antonio. I dominate the foreclosure market, which is every time I tell people in San Antonio to do foreclosure, they're like, everybody does foreclosures. Not how we do it, because I can make 150 grand a month on just foreclosures. I'm very good at what I do, but because I focus. They're like, why don't you go to Austin? Because I do San Antonio. Why don't you do, absentees? Because I do pre-foreclosures, right? I specialize. And when you start off, that's why a lot of you guys in here that don't have acquisitions, because you fix and flip, buy and hold, you don't do it because it's way too much work. Way too much work. This way, Rob, is this a lot of work? No. What's a complaint he's had is that he has too much time. It's a serious complaint. And it's not a brag, but it's like when you focus 3-4 hours a day. That's why I didn't name this presentation, make more money in less time, because it was catchy. Seriously, 3-4 hours a day. You do not need to spend more time than that. Because when you are laser focused on the market, laser focused on the marketing, laser focused on your buyers, you can keep making money. So easy to make money and so easy to make a lot of money. So I love this quote from Atomic Habits. I found it funny. I was talking to Brian because they're studying that book. But you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Everybody tells me all the time, John, I want to do 15 deals a year, 20 deals a year, 30 deals a year. I'm like, who cares? Why don't you focus on building the systems that can generate you consistent deal flow? That's what you need to focus on, not the number of deals. Because you can't control your results. You can only control the actions you take. The actions you take are the actions to get the marketing going, to get your acquisition business set up, to get the deals consistently coming in. Those are actions you can control. The results come from those actions, but you can't control those. You have to take the right action to build the system. You have to build the system. You have to build the foundation. Then you go from there. Every time I get, what marketing should I do? Pillar 1, pillar 2. Where should I be marketing? Pillar 1, pillar 2. What should I be buying? Pillar 1, pillar 2. It's not that complicated. The market is telling you what's working. It's telling you what it's willing to pay for. All you got to do is just jump in, supply the market. That's it. So if this is something that interests you guys, you can book a strategy call with me, not with a salesperson, and we'll see if this is even a good fit for you guys. I run a mastermind, and where I teach you the 9 pillars. It's not a standalone course. I don't believe in standalone courses. I don't believe there's a one-size-fits-all kind of strategy out there. This is a guiding course, and the mastermind is what takes you to that next level, right? It's how to implement it, how to do all that. So we all jump on the strategy calls about 30 minutes, and what I want to know is this even a thing for you? There's a lot of people that would like to do this, but can't. They don't have the skills, they don't have the resources, you shouldn't be doing this. There's maybe another path to do it. So I don't offer strategy calls for free, but for everybody here, if you want to book a strategy call, go ahead and I'll definitely hop on the phone with you. So with that, that's the end of my presentation.
Let's do some Q&A, John. You got
Yeah, yeah.
So let's start off. Lucas, you got a question? I like it.
Thanks, John. That was great. We're on the same boat when we dispo deals, right? On the wholesale side, we sell a lot of deals to rehabbers and landlords as well. And we don't provide the ARV or estimated rehab, but we've just been getting a lot of questions lately from investors about maybe wanting to see a little more on the marketing side. So we're kind of thinking about switching that strategy to provide a more like a full-blown marketing packet about the deal. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that versus providing minimal information.
So the thing with that is like you guys run a completely different operation because you guys do volume. So the quality of your buyers and everything is going to be very different than for me that I'm looking to do 4 or 5 deals a month. So I build when I build my buyers list, I know my buyers one-on-one. I know all of my buyers. That's why dispo for me takes 20 minutes. All I have to do is I literally just text one of my buyers, hey, you buying right now? Yes. Are you buying in this area? Yes. I'll send you the property, a link of the pictures, the price, and the address. And they tell me if it's a yes or a no, right? So, but these buyers are ready to go. So I think for you, I think you guys do volume. I mean, I don't know if you can do it to that level. I don't think it makes sense, right? You probably have a ton of buyers that get these deals, and you're going to have a different, array of questions they're going to ask you. But to me, anybody that asks for more marketing and stuff like that, it's like, you don't know what you want, right? And that could be dangerous as a buyer, and you may be flaky as a buyer for me. So I'm not going to put the extra work for you. It's like you need to learn the market yourself. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
Go ahead, right here.
Oh.
Kind of with the volume side of things as well, do you always give it a price, or do you sometimes reach out to a couple of investors and say, like, highest and best?
So I never do highest and best because it just pisses people off, right? You come to me as an investor, you say, hey, what's your highest and best? I'd be like, I'm not going to negotiate against myself. That makes no sense, right? So what I do is, what I talked about reverse wholesaling, is if I'm not sure on the price of the house, like what the price is, I go high, like stupid high, right? Because if that price doesn't work, what ends up happening, like for me, if you bring me a house that I'll probably pay $125 for, and you say, can you do $145? Like, hell no. But you're like, what can you do? I'll give you my $125. Because I'm not going to lowball you because it's like you're so high. It's like, look, I need to be at least at $125. So I'm giving you my top dollar already. So now that's like, all right, his top dollar is $125. But if you start, let's say, too close to what the value kind of is, most buyers are going to still beat you down anyway. Because nobody wants to pay what you, even if the numbers make sense. It's like, yeah, the numbers make sense, but I'm not going to pay that. I'm going to pay a little bit less. So I start higher. And it's honestly, I did it just because of that, because people are always haggling. But what's been the happy surprise for me is how many people are actually, their numbers are much higher than I would have thought, right? I start at 145 thinking that they're probably going to hit me with a 120, and then they're like, nah, I can probably do 140. Like, let's go. Done. I fight it a little bit, be like, man, is that the best you can do though? Like 141.5 maybe, right? Like, because I can't, and this works with sellers too. If you ever have a seller that says, I want 150 for the house, and you're like, man, 150 works, never pay 150 because it was too easy. They get that seller's remorse instantly of like, shit, should have asked for more, right? So they ask 150 works, I start at 145. I will not pay 150. I'll pay 149.9, but I won't pay 150. And I tell you this because I've lost a lot of deals because of that. It's silly. I know it's silly and it's funny and it's ridiculous. We should all be able, adults, to agree on a price, but we're not. When you feel like it was just too good, too easy, you're like, should have done more, right? It's that feeling. Yeah.
Okay. If you're laser focused in on a market and you know the market, do you feel like you physically have to be in that market?
I do. Yes, I do. Managing from afar is a whole different thing. Are you talking about flips, wholesale? What specifically?
Well, mostly wholesale. I live in Costa Rica.
That's pretty far, yeah.
I've got properties in Missouri and Kansas and Oklahoma, and I I manage remodels from Costa Rica on some of my properties. But as far as switching to wholesaling, because I'm looking for something I can do a lot less hands-off than what I'm doing right now, because I don't want to come back here that much. I kind of like
You don't like the alarms?
Yeah.
They're nice.
We have earthquakes.
Oh yeah. The thing with that, so with wholesaling, what I've seen brings bigger, deeper discount deals. You know, like I said, on average, our wholesale deals are 35. We're closing on a wholesale right now for 90 grand, right? Like they're discounts. They're not $10,000 wholesale deals. They're steep discounts. The way we're able to do that is because somebody goes to the house physically to talk to that seller with contract in hand, able to talk to them, connect with them on a personal level. This isn't a virtual, this is why like when people preach like virtual wholesaling or AI, cold calling and all that, I get excited because I'm like, man, you guys are gonna suck, right? Because they don't compete with me because all they gotta do, their only hope is volume. I don't need volume. I get big deals, so I don't need volume, right? So what I recommend is you get somebody local that you can partner with. Somebody that can be your boots on the ground. Somebody that has charisma, you know, a decent presentation, you know, and just not somebody hideous. People like pretty people. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm not, you know, somebody that's nice. But partner with somebody that's here that maybe you can supply, you know, you can pay for the marketing, you can pay for the systems, you can pay for that, and they do the legwork, right? They go to the properties, they speak to the people, they build a rapport, and you can go coaching them or helping them on how to close these deals. But you need, in my opinion, you just need boots on the ground. I know there's a lot of people out there that do virtual. By all means, have fun. I just haven't seen the spreads that make virtual make sense, in my opinion. What's up, brother?
It's funny you say that because the deal I have under contract in Texas virtually has about an $80,000 spread on it, but definitely not doing good there.
Well, because but it's a spread, but it's not a done deal, right? And then it's like, what is the consistency of you hitting those deals all the time? Because you're all over the place. So it's not that you can't make money doing that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying consistently it's going to be hard. And I try to tell people, don't stay as a wholesaler. You're just pushing contracts, right? The goal is for you to grow, to be able to flip houses, to be able to acquire rentals, to be able to be an actual investor. To me, a wholesaler, sorry to offend anybody, but it's not an investor. You know, you're a wholesaler, you're a marketer. That's what wholesaling is marketing.
I appreciate that. What do you think the best investment you made, either into yourself or your business, was?
Hiring a coach. When I started hiring a coach, so here's why I dropped out of high school. I was a terrible student, like just really bad, really lazy, never paid attention, but I was really good at cheating. Like I cheated my ass off on everything. I was really good at it. And cheating is not encouraged in school, but is highly encouraged in entrepreneurship. If somebody's doing what you want to learn, go learn from them. You understand? So every coach that I've hired has more than 10x my business considerably. You understand? Like it's something but they got to be doing what you want. Don't hire a coach that just stands in the front of the room saying a really nice pitch that's like, yeah, I would love to be making 50 grand a month with working 3 hours. Maybe that's not the plan for you though. Maybe that's not the business model for you, right? What is it that you want first? And then who's the person that can help you do that? And it doesn't always have to be a paid coach. It could be somebody local. You know, before I started actually like coaching and teaching, I was coaching people for free locally because I like helping people. So even any of you guys here, you reach out to me on social media, I'm going to respond and I'm going to help you out and I'm going to answer all your questions. You understand? Like it's just, I enjoy doing that. But there is no one investment that's going to make more money for you than investing in you. You're the money maker, not the property. You understand? You can lose a property, but as long as you're still here and healthy, you'll keep making money.
Question in the front here.
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for all the information. This has been great. From a wholesale side, I know you said you do like pre-foreclosures and stuff like that. Over the 12 years that you've been doing this, like, what lists have you liked to go? Like, what are successful, the more successful lists, and what lists do you try to stay away from?
We go back to what is the market doing at the time. So before the interest rates shot up like they did, we were actually having tremendous success marketing to properties that had the senior citizen exemption on them, and that they owned them for more than 15 years. Because now it's an elderly couple that has a house that's 15 square feet or bigger, and they've owned it for 15 years, it's probably dated, and we were killing it. We were doing, very well with that list. The market shift. We needed to shift with the market. We went to pre-probates, actually, before we did pre-foreclosures, because it was still kind of during the moratorium wasn't fully over and all that nonsense. So we were waiting for that, so we did pre-probates. We were doing really well with that until foreclosures were allowed again. Then we went all in on foreclosures. Foreclosures is where we are able to structure subject to deals. And that's the other thing too. When you're negotiating your own deal versus buying from a wholesaler, you can structure whatever deal you want. You want to do an owner finance, you want to do a subject to with the seller, you want to negotiate a better terms, you can do all that. But what I've learned is like a lot of wholesalers are terrible negotiators. So they're wholesaling you a deal, but it's like maybe if you would have gotten a hands on that deal, you would have gotten it much lower than what they even got it for. They just don't know how to speak to sellers, right? So the list that works is what the market wants. We do pre-foreclosures in San Antonio, but they're not that good up here. Right here, what we're doing is pre-probates, right? They're working very well, but until when? That's why whenever somebody asks me you guys, what list works? I'm like, don't ask that question. Because then when that list stops working, you're gonna need to call and ask me again, right? So learn how to do this, so then that way you always know what list to be pulling. Make sense?
Hey, John, since you say pre-foreclosures is working in San Antonio, does that mean that, you mentioned the market is softening in San Antonio also, does that mean there's a lot more foreclosures coming in San Antonio?
Correct. Yeah, what we started paying attention to is not just, the reason that foreclosures started working is before the banks, like pre-2020, we stopped doing pre-foreclosures in around 2018, because it was like the bottom of the barrel. People that were 3 years behind were starting to get foreclosed on. Right now, the banks are foreclosing on people after 4 months. So after 4 months, they owe very little for reinstatements. Those are some killer subject to deals that we can negotiate. You understand? Because now I reinstate the loan for $4,000 or $5,000, and I take over those payments. And I'm in it for nothing, right? And that house is cash flowing right away. So it's a great strategy. Now, a caveat to that, subject to is not something everybody should be doing. All right, I know you have these gurus out there like, hey, sub two, but it's a very dangerous strategy. It is something that you got to respect the strategy, because you can take the sellers home and give them no recourse. And you can really screw over some sellers out there. We have, as people that market for deals and negotiate and do all that, we have tremendous power. You got to make sure you use it wisely. Don't screw over sellers. We're not in the business of stealing houses. Right? We're in the business of helping people that need to sell, not want to sell, that need to sell. Yes.
Hi, John.
Hi.
So I have noticed that people that are wholesaling, doing acquisitions, the vast majority are men. And I don't tend to get intimidated very often, but can you give some advice and feedback to a woman who is interested in wholesaling, how they can take an advantage, etc.?
So in my experience, women are much better. Hands down. Because the best strategy that I teach for marketing, especially when you're starting off, is cold calling. A woman's voice is less threatening than a man's. People are more willing to open up to a woman than they are to a man, 10 out of 10 times. I had acquisitions people in my office that were women, and my God, their close rate was ridiculous. I was like, this is sexist, and it's just what it is. Like, there's so many men out there that when a female's voice comes in, it's a whole different perspective, right? It's softer, it's nicer. That's why when I train people on cold calling, I'm like, don't be this, especially if you're a very serious person. I had a cold caller once in my office. Hey, my name is Randy. Do you want to sell your house? I'm like, bro, Wake the fuck up. You know, it's like you got to be very perky because you got to seem non-threatening when you're on the phone, right? You got to be enthusiastic so they're excited to talk to you. And women just have that more naturally. Whenever I coach a lot of couples, and it's always the same thing. It's like the woman doesn't want to call. I'm like, ooh, but if you did, you'd be a lot more successful than your husband. You know, because it's just that I think women have a massive advantage in this business. So it's a limiting belief. Get rid of that because it definitely is not true. Yes, sir.
Hey, could you explain reverse wholesaling? Does that mean you buy it high, or how does that work?
So reverse wholesaling, I didn't even know that was a term. I learned it from some guru on YouTube. I was doing it already, and they just coined it. I was like, oh, that's cute. But pretty much what it is like instead of you contracting a house and then trying to wholesale it, you go speak to a buyer first on what it is that they can do, then go contract it based on that number, right? So that's why they call it, I guess, reverse wholesaling, because you're not contracting it first, you're contracting it after you kind of get almost like a commitment from your buyer. So I've done this a lot. There's times that I get properties that I'm just looking at them and I'm like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do with this one. The seller's really motivated though. So I'm like, I talk to the seller, I'm good at like getting deep into what they need. And it's like, all right, they need 70 grand. So now I reach out to my buyers. I'm like, would you do 100, right? I just throw a number out there. I don't even have it under contract. So I don't blast it. This is why we build a buyer's list. This is why so many people struggle. They blast their deals. Then they get 15, 20 buyers calling them. You're wasting all this time trying to close this one deal. And your marketing takes a hit because your marketing cannot stop. That's why when I wholesale properties, it takes me 20 minutes. I go directly to the buyers. So reverse wholesaling, you have a buyer's list. You have a buyer that potentially likes houses in that area, right? You send them the pictures, you send them the address. Can you do 100? Yeah, I can do 100. When can I go take a look at it? Let me get back to you. Let me schedule something with the seller. Go to the seller, lock it up for 70, go back to the buyer, be like, you can go tomorrow, right? Now you have yourself a buyer ready to go for that property. So there's less risk and you don't look like, I don't like people wasting the seller's time either. That's why I say build a buyer's list. When I contract a house, I always contract it with a buyer in mind, right? I've heard so many people, they're like, oh yeah, we contract 6, 7, 8 contracts a month. How many do you close? 3. I'm like, that's terrible. I contract 4 and I close 4. You understand? Like, to me, like backing out on a seller is the worst thing I could possibly do. The only times I've ever backed out on a seller is when they didn't tell me that they had these massive liens on the house. That's like, shit, that just killed the deal, right? But that wasn't me. That was they weren't disclosing it. When we went through title, we found those things out. But I hate backing out from sellers. When I give my word, I'm there. Let's go, right? So if I'm not sure, that's where you do the reverse wholesale.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey John,
What's up?
when you are dealing with pre-foreclosure, are you dealing with the bank or the homeowners?
Pre-foreclosure is with the homeowner. So until it gets actually auctioned off, it's still their home. They can sell. All they got to do is make sure they cover what they owe. So that's really the only difference. So whatever it is that they owe on the house, if you can cover that and it's still a deal for you, you deal with the homeowner and you buy the house the traditional way. But with pre-foreclosure, where it adds the benefit is if they're really, like they're going to lose the house, right? It's either you sell or you lose it. We've had marginal deals that's like, man, the only way this works is as a sub-2, right? If I can keep the loan in place, take over the payments at a 2% interest rate, with $600 a month payments, and it rents for $1,300, I don't have a lot of equity, but it'll cash flow. I'll do that deal, right? So that's the benefit with those.
Are you doing short sales at all, or are you just mainly focused on the sub-2s, these equity deals and sub-2?
Yeah, short sales, we don't come across a lot of them. So again, when we pull our foreclosures, because we get so many in San Antonio, we filter them by 10 years or older from the deed of trust date. So that way we increase our chances that the property has equity. So, and that's kind of like whenever we pull any list, and you want to know if it has equity, I don't use PropStream or Deal Machine or whatever their guesstimate is. I use the last deed transfer, right? If the last deed transfer is 10, 15 plus years, there's a pretty good chance that they have the refinance? Maybe, but more than not, they haven't, and they have a good amount of equity in the deal. So that's how we filter our leads to make sure that we have enough margin and meat on the bone.